Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today I thought we are gonna do Napoleon in Italy. So it's Epic History TV, their series on Napoleon in Italy, right? So this is the first episode. This is Battle of Lodi. So the context of this is probably, what is it? Napoleon has dispersed the royalist mob with grape shot, I think, and he got appointed as army commander of the army of Italy, I think, right? And the French are doing a three-pronged attack on their enemies or opponents, right? On Prussia and Austria, I think it is. Or maybe just Austria, I don't know. But yeah, original videos down below. Let's go.
An Epic History TV PMF Productions collaboration. In 1796, at the height of the French Revolutionary Wars, a young French general took charge of a ragged, demoralized army in northern Italy. It was his first command. Many expected him to fail. Instead, in just 1 month, he won his first brilliant campaign.
In 1 month, though. Think about that. But also, the army of Italy is like the sideshow, right? And the soldiers there are underpaid. They have barely clothes that they would need in a campaign. Food is running low. Morale is running low. But then this young commander comes in, and in 1 month, he gets his brilliant victories in this campaign. In 1 month.
With astonishing self-confidence, boldness and energy, he led his army to victory after victory. Transforming the war in Europe, winning praise from a grateful republic, and forging a legend. This is the story of Napoleon Bonaparte's first campaign, and the dawn of a new age. 1792. Europe is plunged into conflict by revolution in France. At first, it seems this infant republic will be quickly snuffed out by her neighbors.
I mean, yeah, look at this. France is almost surrounded, right? They have Spain to their south. They have Piedmont, Austria, Prussia, Netherlands, Austria, Netherlands to their east. Tuscany as well, and Kingdom of Sicily, I think it is. Or Italy. No, it's Italy, yeah. And then Great Britain to the north. They're surrounded on every flank. Plus, they have a civil war / revolution inside France itself. Maybe not everywhere in France, but in big cities. And on probably countrysides as well, right? Revolutionaries and counter-revolutionaries are fighting, right? So it's miraculous how France didn't just break apart, right?
Incredibly, France clings on, thanks to mass mobilization, patriotic fervor, and her traditional military power.
Because think about this. If you're in the Revolutionary Army, almost your entire history up to the point of the revolution has been that you and your ancestor has been under absolute monarchy rule, right? That the monarch rules, right? Here you have everybody that is attacking you outside France, and counter-revolutionaries. Almost all of them, I think all of them, are on the monarchy side. If you want to have the republic on one side and the monarchies on the left side, right? Right? So it makes sense why they're so eager to fight, right? And I think France at this point is the second most populated country in Europe, so it makes sense that they could have a lot of big armies, right? And a lot of people, right?
In 1795, France occupies the Low Countries, while Prussia and Spain withdraw from the war. But the French Republic still faces a powerful coalition of enemies. which includes the Austrian Empire and kingdoms of Piedmont, Sardinia, Naples, and Great Britain, as well as a counter-revolutionary revolt in the Vendée region of western France. In Paris, the most extreme revolutionaries had been toppled, sent to the guillotine, as they had sent so many before them. France is now governed by the Directory, a more moderate five-man committee, which quickly wins a reputation for corruption and inefficiency. Nevertheless, in 1796, they plan a major military offensive to knock their most dangerous adversary, Austria, out of the war. The two main efforts will be made along the Rhine by powerful armies under General Jourdan and General Moreau.
Okay, Jourdan we know.
The third effort, of which much less is expected, will be made in northern Italy. The French Army of Italy is a poor cousin, starved of money and supplies, stripped of troops to reinforce French forces on the Rhine. But its fortunes are about to change. On the 2nd of March, 1796, the Directory appoint a new commander to lead the army. One of France's youngest generals, Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon arrives at the Army of Italy's headquarters in Nice on the 25th of March. He's just 26 years old. 2 years have passed since he masterminded French victory at the Siege of Toulon. Since then, his fortunes have been mixed. A short spell as artillery commander in Italy, 10 days in jail when his political patrons fell from power. He then refused to serve in the Vendée, fighting French counter-revolutionaries, leading to several months' unemployment in Paris. Then, an extraordinary break. 13 Vendémiaire, Paris. A royalist mob threatens to storm the national government. Napoleon is the closest general to hand and put in charge of its defense.
Imagine if Napoleon wasn't there. Like he wasn't in a Vendée, right? Like, then we might not have Napoleon Bonaparte, the great general and almost absolute monarch, right? We wouldn't have that. Imagine he was imprisoned for much longer. We wouldn't have Napoleon. Wow.
He disperses the crowds with brutal efficiency and is acclaimed savior of the revolution. A grateful Directory promotes Napoleon to General of Division and awards him command of the Army of Italy. On the 9th of March, he marries his great love, Joséphine de Beauharnais, and leaves for the front 2 days later. There are French generals in Italy with a better claim to command than Napoleon. Serrurier, a professional soldier who first saw action in the 7 Years' War, a decade before Napoleon was born. Augereau, a tough, experienced soldier, bold tactician, and committed Republican. And Massena, risen from the ranks, fearless, tireless, hero of the Battle of Loarno against the Austrians the year before. All three would later become marshals of Napoleon's empire. For now, Napoleon seems to these veterans young and underqualified, a political appointment, embarrassingly infatuated with his new wife. But there is something about the Corsican. As Massena observed, his small size and puny face did not put him in their favor. But as soon as he donned his general's hat, he seemed to grow by 2 feet.
But I mean, he wasn't that short, right? To our standard, he might be short, but to their standard, he isn't. Maybe to Massena, he is short, right? And maybe it's not short meaning in physical form, maybe in stature, maybe how he carried himself at this point, right? Maybe.
Napoleon impresses above all with his tireless energy, and he has much to do. His army is organized into Massena's advance guard of 2 divisions, one led by a hard-fighting Swiss general La Harpe, and the other by Meunier, whom Napoleon soon decides is incompetent.
Oh,
the main body comprises the divisions of Augereau, Serrurier, and 2 smaller divisions under Macquart and Garnier. The cavalry is led by General Stengel.
You see this though? There's a separate division, or whatever you want to call it, of cavalry, and the rest is... There's probably some artillery dispersed around these divisions, right? But the cavalry is separate from the division, which is good, you can argue, because you concentrate your cavalry, yeah. But later on, Napoleon's going, when he have the corps system, he's going to make mini armies, right? So instead of just a standalone cavalry detachment, you have it in the division or corps with some artillery, right? So they're more independent and flexible. Okay.
But the army of Italy has been shockingly neglected by the Directory.
Yep.
The men are hungry and unpaid, with a few units on the verge of mutiny. Some men don't even have shoes or muskets. Napoleon inspects the troops and studies reports. He enforces discipline and breaks up rotten units. He is assisted by his aide-de-camp, Junot, Marmont, and a dashing cavalry colonel, Joachim Murat. As emperor, Napoleon will make 2 of these men dukes, and one a king. His most valuable...
I mean, it's so cool to see that a lot of these commanders, generals, are then following Napoleon's success and are just right behind him, right? It's pretty cool.
His assistant is his new chief of staff, General Berthier, who helps him to reorganize the army's supply system and scour southern France for food, transport, and forage. The situation begins to improve. But Napoleon knows what will really rejuvenate his ragged divisions: victory in battle and the promise of plunder.
I mean, that's a good motivation. I want to lead you into the most fertile plains in the world. Rich provinces, great cities will be in your power. There will be find honor, glory, and riches. Soldiers of Italy, will you lack courage or constancy? Okay.
Napoleon has spent 2 years studying the situation in northern Italy.
That's good.
And the history of past wars here.
Me just looking at this map, right, and me knowing sort of what Napoleon does in the future, right, and what he's famous for, is that you see 2 different countries or nations, right, and armies. What do you want to do? Separate them, keep Austrians at bay, and take Piedmont on separately, right? Just me looking at the map, right? It's like Waterloo, but it doesn't go that good, right? It makes sense.
He has developed clear plans on how the campaign must be fought. Now, he will put them into action. Napoleon, with 38,000 troops, outnumbers the Piedmontese and the Austrian army. But if they combine, he will be outnumbered, so he must prevent this at all costs. His plan bears all the hallmarks of what will become known as the Napoleonic art of war. A bold, rapid advance, not against the expected target, Genoa, but Dago. Here he will occupy the central position and prize his enemies apart.
Makes sense.
He knows that when threatened, the Piedmontese will retreat on their capital Turin, the Austrians on Milan.
And this makes sense on the Austrians' part and Piedmont's part, right? To save the capitals or big cities, right? It makes sense. But if Napoleon knows his enemy, what his enemy is going to do, then Napoleon can exploit that, right? So he's betting on him taking Dago would just split the Austrians and Piedmonts by themselves. He doesn't have to get in between there. They are just afraid that he will go to Turin or Milan, right? And they need to protect that, which makes sense. But you have to know your enemy, which Napoleon does
With his
here.
enemies divided, unable to support each other, he can defeat each in detail.
Yep.
Napoleon's
Rommel
plan
does that
will
in
be
World War
aided
II.
by the fragility of the Austro-Piedmontese alliance. They regard each other with deep distrust after years of rivalry. The new Austrian commander, General Beaulieu, is experienced and was once considered energetic, but he is now 70 years old and does not know Italy. He is convinced the French will target Genoa, the port used by the British to supply their coalition allies. So much so that he rejects Piedmontese plans for close cooperation.
One thing though, it makes sense that he would think that he would take Genoa because that's a supply base. But what is supplies good for if you are defeated in the battle, on the field, right? What does that supply? It doesn't help you, right? But okay.
Their troops remain scattered across mountain passes in a general defense against invasion.
Makes sense.
On the 4th of April, Napoleon moves his headquarters forward to Albenga in preparation for his offensive. But Beaulieu strikes first. On the 10th of April, Austrian troops take Voltri to disrupt the expected French attack on Genoa.
Makes sense.
A small French garrison falls back to join Massena's advance guard at Savona. But Beaulieu's fixation with Genoa is playing into Napoleon's hands. Dago, with its vital crossroads that link the Piedmontese and Austrian armies, is covered by just 8,000 men of Argenteau's corps. Mountainous terrain means Beaulieu can only march to Argenteau's aid via Acqui, more than 20 miles to the north. What's more, Argenteau has orders to take French positions at Montenotte as a diversion for the attack at Voltri. But the French cling on courageously. Corporal Roache particularly distinguishes himself, exposing himself to enemy fire to shoot down on the enemy. His commander, Colonel Rampont, tells his men, "Here we must conquer or die." A moment which quickly enters French military folklore. It's the perfect setup for Napoleon. The enemy's attention is focused on Voltri, and Argenteau's corps has been left dangerously exposed. He swings into action, sending La Harpe's division to reinforce Rampont's troops, while Massena makes a tough night march across steep ravines in rain and fog to turn Argenteau's right flank. By dawn, the Austrians are outnumbered, outflanked, and under heavy attack. They retreat.
And think how quickly Napoleon has done this, right? Napoleon hasn't done like his opponent in Austria, or the Austrian opponent has done, right? The Austrian general is waiting for Napoleon to attack Genoa instead of him taking the sort of surprise attack that he could have done on Napoleon, right? He could have taken him by surprise, but maybe his orders were not to attack the French, but just to have a defense for Italy, right? And not to attack the French or something, I don't know.
Retreat in disarray. Napoleon orders Massena to move on Dago, while he turns his attention to the Piedmontese.
So the Piedmontese actually came to the Austrians' aid, but in small numbers and too late. Which, obviously, they're too late.
But Augereau's advance gets held up at Cosseria. The old castle is held by Piedmontese and Croatian grenadiers. The French launch frontal attacks into withering fire and suffer hundreds of casualties. When the colonel of the 18th Demi Brigade is killed, a 26-year-old Louis Gabriel Suchet takes over command. "I have never seen fire like it," wrote Marmont, Napoleon's aide-de-camp.
Yeah.
Despite heroic resistance, the hopelessly outnumbered garrison surrenders the next day. With Serrurier's division also advancing from the south, Piedmontese commander General Colli has little choice but to abandon his position at Montezemolo. The same day, under Napoleon's watchful eye, Massena takes Dago. But while La Harpe's division moves off to reinforce Augereau, hungry French troops left in Dago turn to plunder and pillage. No one spots Colonel Vukasovic, a tough Croatian commander, approaching with 3,000 reinforcements. He attacks at dawn, routing the French and retaking Dago with ease. It requires the recall of La Harpe's division and another day of heavy combat before Vukasovic can be driven out of Dago. A bayonet charge led by 27-year-old Colonel Lannes wins particular praise from General Bonaparte. Napoleon has won 3 victories in 4 days. The marches and battles have been grueling, but he has achieved his first objective. The Austrians are regrouping at Acqui and will soon retreat to Alessandria. They can offer no support to the Piedmontese. And so General Colli orders another withdrawal to a strong defensive position behind the Corsalia River.
That makes sense.
Napoleon orders an immediate attack. Augereau's division on the right, Serrurier on the left, Massena in support. But the French, under heavy fire, struggle to cross the swollen river with its steep banks. When Serrurier's troops finally get into San Michele, they immediately begin looting the town and are thrown out by a counterattack. Despite his success, Colli is still heavily outnumbered and fears encirclement. The following evening, he begins a covert withdrawal to Mondovì. But Napoleon is not deceived by the fake campfires. Patrols...
Because fake campfires were usually used, or I don't know how far back campfires went in just military strategy in the night when you wanted to withdraw. Right? So you have set up a lot of campfires on the line, and where you pretend that soldiers are sitting, and then you have a lot of your soldiers withdrawing, but some soldiers staying there and just making a lot of noise and walking back and forth, right? To pretend that you're more than you are, right? And that you're not withdrawing. And Napoleon knows this, and the Piedmontese are withdrawing now. This is gonna be a massacre.
Confirm his suspicions. The Piedmontese are pulling back. Though his troops are exhausted, wet and hungry, he launches them after the fleeing enemy. Colli's troops are caught before they can establish a new defensive line. The brave and popular General Dicat is killed. Retreat turns to rout. The French enter Mondovì in triumph, where at last, briefly, they can eat and rest.
The two armies which lately attacked you in full confidence now fly before you in terror. Yeah, that's true.
General Colli, his defeated troops scattered and demoralized, requests an armistice. Napoleon declines as his troops descend from the mountains into the fertile plain of Piedmont. Destitute and starved, French soldiers now plunder the Italian countryside freely. Brigadier General Joubert is among those frustrated by the men's conduct. Everything would go very well if the soldiers did not abandon themselves to pillage. Not a day passes without some looters being shot. Despite this severity, the mania doesn't stop. The rural folk are arming themselves.
And that's not what you want. Even though you might be superior in tactics, have superior arms, right? Guns. Doesn't matter. It's slowing you down, and you're going to lose casualties from non-military people, and you're also killing and injuring civilians, which you're gonna get more rural folk, as he called them, and that arms themselves, right? So, yeah.
Napoleon condemns such behavior, but his orders have limited impact. Yep. Especially as everyone knows Generals Massena and Augereau to be two of the greatest offenders.
Wow. Not setting good examples.
April, French troops enter Carrasco, just 30 miles south of the Piedmontese capital, Turin. Meanwhile, General Beaulieu is at long last marching to Piedmont's aid.
Okay.
But he is a week late. And when he learns that Piedmont has opened negotiations with the enemy, he withdraws his troops in disgust, planning to take up new positions along the Po River. Austrian troops join in the plunder of Piedmontese villages as they go. Victor Amadeus III, King of Piedmont Sardinia, sees no option but to accept Bonaparte's terms for an armistice. Piedmont must give up the strategic fortresses at Cuneo and either Alessandria or Tortona, leaving the country virtually defenseless.
Yep.
The final peace treaty, signed 3 weeks later in Paris, cedes Nice and Savoie to France. And grants free passage to French armies.
Is that when France gets Nice? No, they probably had it some point in history, right? Maybe? I don't know. That's pretty cool.
Napoleon has ended the 4-year war with Piedmont in less than 3 weeks.
Think about that. Everybody else that's tried to defeat Piedmont and Austria and Kingdom of Naples and Tuscany, and Napoleon defeated Piedmont less than 3 weeks. Wow. With that state of the army as well, right? Wow. Soldiers, you have won 6 victories in a fortnight and conquered the richest part of Piedmont. Yes. But soldiers, you have yet done nothing, for there still remains much to do. Setting up standards. Yes. Okay.
The army of Italy has little time to rest on its laurels.
Yep.
4 days later, having received 7,000 reinforcements and fresh supplies, it's on the move again. Napoleon plans to invade the rich province of Lombardy, ruled by the Emperor of Austria, and defeat Beaulieu's army.
Makes sense.
But first he must cross the Po River, which is closely watched by Austrian forces. It will prove one of Napoleon's most brilliant maneuvers. Massena is ordered to make conspicuous preparations to cross the river near Sale, assembling boats and building gun batteries. Meanwhile, Napoleon has formed a new elite brigade, 5,000 grenadiers, carabiniers, and chasseurs to act as the army's advance guard under the command of General d'Allemagne. This force is ordered to march rapidly east to Piacenza and cover 40 miles in just 36 hours.
Wow.
They are followed by La Harpe's division, then Augereau and the cavalry. Beaulieu receives reports that French troops are moving east and begins to redeploy his forces, while remaining conscious that there are still French troops that might cross the Po as far west as Valença.
Because think about this now. Napoleon's trying to do a fait accompli here, right? Because I think Napoleon has more numbers than the Austrians, but the Austrians has a good defensive position and they're protecting the Po River. However, if Napoleon is splitting his army to half, and you also split it to half, you have still lost in numbers, right? And he can attack you in much more places than you can defend. He's just stretching the Austrian lines out, right? I mean, if Napoleon goes east, let's say Napoleon is planning to attack in the east. He takes half or a little more than half and goes east. And then he can just have the rest of the army just be here and pretend that they're going to attack to just uphold these troops that are going to be there. But then here's the fait accompli. If the Austrians knows that the French here are just there to diverge them from getting to the east to help in the east, and the Austrian moves their army here from the west to the east, then the French here in the west are just going to attack. And you have lost. This is a fait accompli.
This
if it goes
uncertainty
out planned,
makes
right?
it impossible for him to concentrate his forces.
Exactly.
What's more, he's completely underestimated the scale and speed of Napoleon's move. The French advance guard, with Colonel Lannes in the lead, crosses the Po on the 7th of May, chasing off Austrian patrols that are the only opposition.
Okay.
By the next morning, most of La Harpe's and Augereau's divisions and the cavalry are across, consolidating the French bridgehead, while Massena and Serrurier move to the crossing as fast as they can. Men of General Litaille's division are the closest Austrian troops. They take up defensive positions at Fombio, but are overwhelmed by the French attack.
Look at that.
That evening, Beaulieu's advance guard arrives, expecting to reinforce Liptay. Instead, they blunder into La Harpe's division. In confused night fighting, General La Harpe is shot dead, possibly by friendly fire.
Wow.
Napoleon regards him as one of the army's best generals, and his loss a great blow.
Yep.
Beaulieu, realizing that the French have crossed the Po in force and now threaten to cut him off, orders a rapid withdrawal east. Milan is to be sacrificed. The great fortress of Mantua will be his next refuge.
Okay.
The French advance guard is soon in pursuit. On the morning of the
Lodi.
10th of May, they catch the Austrian rearguard at Lodi. French troops chase the Austrians across town and over the town's 200-yard bridge over the River Adda.
I mean, this looks like it's going to be a massacre for the French. The Austrians has a very good defensive position. They have a concentration of force of themselves and the French, but the Austrians have guns just pointing at the bridge, right? Let's see how this is going to go.
But when they try to follow, they find the bridge is swept by fire from 14 guns. Its far end is held by 3 battalions of Croatian infantry.
Okay.
Several more battalions and cavalry squadrons are behind them in reserve. Around 6,500 men in total. Napoleon soon arrives and positions guns to bombard the Austrians on the far bank. An artillery duel rages for much of the afternoon.
Okay.
Napoleon sends Beaumont's cavalry brigade upstream to look for a ford
Makes sense.
so they can cross the river and flank the Austrian defenses. But he grows impatient. Massena's division has begun to arrive from the south, bringing his strength up to 15,000 men and 30 guns. Napoleon makes a speech to the infantry, taunting them, daring them to take the bridge, then orders them forward. To cries of "Vive la République!" the hardened 2nd Carabinier Battalion leads the charge. They come under torrential fire from the Austrian guns.
Grape shot, probably.
But urged on by Napoleon, Berthier, Massena, Lannes, and others, French infantry surge across, under, and around the bridge. Faced with this irresistible onslaught, the Austrian front line crumbles. And with French cavalry across the river to the north, the rest of the Austrian rearguard begins an orderly withdrawal.
Yep. Wow. And Napoleon attacked a concentration of fire from the Austrians. That's amazing. It would probably be higher for the French if the French cavalry didn't come in the time that they came, right? Wow. I'm no longer regarding myself as a simple general, okay, but as a man called upon to decide the fate of peoples. Okay.
5 days after his victory at Lodi, Napoleon leads his army into the city of Milan. They are welcomed by cheering crowds. Though in reality, Italians are deeply divided in their attitudes towards the French.
Yep. Makes sense.
After Lodi, French soldiers have a new nickname for their general, Le Petit Caporal, the Little Corporal. It's a term of affection because he gets his hands dirty, even aiming the guns himself, the job of an artillery corporal. In just a month, Napoleon has transformed a war-weary, disheveled and demoralized army into a victorious fighting force, brimming with esprit de corps and eager for further conquests. While he, in his first campaign, has demonstrated extraordinary energy, mastery of detail, brilliant military intuition, above all, indomitable self-belief. It is this quality that inspires his soldiers to risk their lives for glory, for the Republic, and for the man they will one day acclaim their emperor.
That's all true. That was amazing. That's all true. Because they didn't only fight for France, the Republic, they fought for Napoleon, right? Same as the Romans fought for Caesar, Julius Caesar, and not just any random commander or general, right? Same under Alexander the Great. Although after a while, you know, people got tired, but right. This was amazing. We're gonna keep watching this series. It's amazing. Alright, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.